time to strap in and get ready.
The leaders in NRL Supercoach are incoming. Bringing you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and climb up the rankings.
You're now listening to the Insight NRL Show with your hosts, Brain, Matrix, and Whisperer.
Yes, g'day guys. Welcome back to the Insight NRL Show. Supercoach Brain here on deck to answer the Insight Unlimited questions. The Q&A that we do every single week for our Insight Unlimited members. So I'm here to answer those today ahead of round 15 of NRL Supercoach. We've got a large amount of options ahead of us here, and this is kind of the part of the year where we can go in a few different directions. So I'm really looking forward to this one. We've got some cracking questions here that I think are going to help not just these guys, but a lot of you out there are going to be in the same situation. So we'll crack into that very soon. And if you did want to become an Insight Unlimited member and get access to everything that we do at Insight Fantasy Sports across not just NRL, but AFL, BBL, NBL Supercoach, as well as NBA and NFL Fantasy podcasts has just launched. You can do that, and it only costs you $20 for the rest of the NRL and AFL seasons. So feel free to get in touch with me and I'll point you in the right direction for that. But of course, we're here to answer these questions. So what we'll do is we'll chuck them up on the screen as we always do. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see those pop up. For anybody on audio, I'll talk through them as best as I possibly can. And we'll kick things off with Kashi. Do we think Sean Lane will get DPP as a front row forward, dual position as a front row forward? Look, I mean, they've kind of set a precedent, haven't they, with Josh Curran? So, you know, Josh Curran didn't need to technically start at prop for 3 games to get his dual. I think he only started in 1 or 2 max, and then played obviously a lot of his footy off the bench through the middle of the park. And yes, he has played on an edge as well, and that's initially where they thought or where they positioned him and where he has played in the past. But because he is so versatile, he got that front row forward dual because he did play through the middle off the bench. And normally in previous years, a player wouldn't get dual unless they were seen to be starting in that specific position. And this year they've kind of changed tack a little bit. So based on that, I think, you know, Sean Lane at what are we in round 15? At round 18 at the final dual position changes for the season, I think Sean Lane maybe might get front row forward dual. I don't know whether there's enough there for me to really like it anyway. But yeah, he's probably not a guy I'd be looking at, but I think if he does get front row forward dual, it opens things up a tiny bit for those of you that held anyway. So yeah, well, let's see, but they have opened the door with Josh Curran. So let's see if they follow suit there. JD, I've held Cleary for this long. Is it still worth holding? First of all, incredible amount of patience. Well, you know, and obviously look, for good reason, Cleary's of previous years, the number 1 half. This year, he's kind of been a little bit disappointing. So, and obviously the injury after the injury, and for those of us, and I know I was in this boat, we held through that kind of layoff, that 4 to 5 week layoff that he had or whatever when he first did the hammy at the start of the season, and then he's come back and, you know, it's been a problem for him. So yeah, for me, if you've held this long, I mean, he's due back per NRL physio. He's due back between rounds 18 to 20. I would assume that they won't rush him back before the round 19 bye. It wouldn't really make sense for them to bring him back and then have a bye and then, you know, unless they did want to just get him through that first game in round 18, then he can kind of have another week off or have a 2 week off and then come back. You know, that re-injury risk for hamstrings are I think up to 20% in the first 2 weeks back to performance. So yeah, I would say he'll be back around 20, and I don't know whether you want to hold for another, 6 weeks? Another 5 rounds. Obviously, with Penrith missing 16 and 19, we're still going to miss 3 more Penrith games technically. And that 5 games, technically, if you got a player in to replace Cleary, that 5 games of points can add up pretty quickly. You know, a Jerome Hughes could go and score 400 points across those 5 rounds and go and average 80. You know, so that's the concern for me, is you're just holding a lot of money on the pine. So I would probably, it's a bit of sunk cost fallacy again, isn't it? We talked about this in previous episodes. just because we've held on to someone forever doesn't necessarily mean that we have to continue to hold on to them. Just because you've held on to Cleary this long doesn't mean that you can't just move him on now and just, try and bank some points and potentially even get him back at a discount. He does have a high break even. So I'd probably move Cleary on. And if you asked me a month ago, I probably would have told you I'd also move Cleary on. So, it's not too late. It's not too late to trade him out and hopefully get him back for the run home if he starts to look good. Troz is talking about team value here a little bit, and Nico Hynes specifically. So my team value is 14.9 million with 400k in the bank. So for the most part, what I've seen is most teams have around that 15 to 15.5 mil that are in a pretty good spot. I've seen some teams up closer to 16 mil, but I kind of think that's a bit of overkill. For me, I'm 15.33, and I feel like I've got the balance to my team quite right now. So I don't know whether you need any more than 15.5 mil. So cash gen looks good, but the question here is cash gen stalled, and I'm concerned holding Nico Hynes with a 210 break even with the potential to leak 200k. Do I just hold and cop the price drop, or do I sell to Hughes short term and hopefully rebuy back later? Now, yes, the risk there obviously is that we hold on to Nico, he drops some cash. The good thing is if you plan on holding Nico for the run home, if he drops cash, he could drop down to 204k. I couldn't give a rat's ass. At the end of the day, everybody else will then jump on him cheaper, but you don't lose the cash unless you sell. And I think that's probably the message here is that I'd personally hold Nico. I think he's by far and away the halfback one this year. And I back him to be the halfback one at the end of the season. And, the Sharks do have a really nice run home. If you look at their draw, and what we'll do is we'll bring it up on the screen now just to reference this point, because if we look at the back end of this bye period here, the Sharks this week, they've got the Dolphins into the bye, then they've got the Bulldogs, which are a tough matchup now. We haven't adjusted the colour since preseason. Gold Coast Titans at home at Shark Park. I tell you what, that's going to be an automatic captaincy option for Nico. And then into the Tigers at Shark Park, into the bye. So you've got four kind of decent matchups coming up. Only one of those matchups is away as well. So we love Nico playing at PointsBet. I think he averages 103 at PointsBet in his career, which is insane. So that's just until the end of the bye period. And then we look at the run home for the Sharks, and they've got the Cowboys who have been putrid, Souths who have been very, very questionable, the Titans as well. So that little 6-week run there from weeks 18 to 23 could honestly be the difference between you finishing top 1K or, setting up to make your finals in your head-to-head leagues versus, bowing out early or, going on a bit of a tough run. So for me, Nico's definitely a hold. If you've got him up until now, I would absolutely be holding Nico Hynes. I'll just get the rest of the question up. Do I hold and cop or do I sell to Hughes? I still like to sell to Hughes, but I don't know whether Nico to Hughes is the play this week. Nico to Hughes maybe last week would have been the play, and I would have been a little bit more okay with it. But with the fact that Nico's actually playing against the Dolphins and every chance he won't be playing Origin 2 and 3, meaning he could be available for that third major bye period, is too much for me not to hold on to him. So yeah, I'd hold there, Troz. Matty Granger, I have 23 trades left. Can I afford one on Hopewadi, Lehigh Hopewadi, that is, to get some cash so I can get AFB? Look, if you're facilitating the AFB trade and you may be doing a Sam Hughes or a Liam Henry up to AFB, then sure. Especially with the amount of trades that you have. 23 trades is great. We've got, if you do the math, we've got 13 rounds left. After this week, you'll have 12 rounds of trades, I think it is. So even if you did 2 trades a week, you're pretty much you're close to running out maybe in the last round, which is a way better position than most of us. I've got 17 before trading this week. And I know a lot have less. So for me, I think you're in a great spot with trades, Matty. I would pull the trigger on Lehigh Hopewadi. And then obviously with Turbo, I think he's due back around 18. Then you can kind of, you assess it round 18, but there's still 4 rounds of footy or 3 rounds of footy, 3 cash rises for Hopewadi, I think, in the short term anyway. So I don't mind it if you got the trades, mate. Pull the trigger. John O.D. asking, which trade is more of a priority? We've got Galvin to Cody Walker or a Smithies to Tuolangi, or is either of them boost worthy? Look, I don't think either of them are boost worthy. There was a follow-up question from John O here earlier that said, or is Galvin or Cody even a necessary trade? I don't think it's a necessary trade. I think it is a luxury trade and a trade that by all means I'm all on board with. I think that Cody Walker over this next little period for Souths could actually really, get back up into that 700K mark that we know he can be at. With a negative break even this week at 590K, there's every chance that in 2 weeks' time we're talking about 720K Cody Walker. So for me, it's a good trade this week, I think, with the draw as well. But in saying that, is it necessary? And if you're low on trades, Galvin could come back next week. And as bad as the Tigers have been, he has still averaged 66 over the last 3 rounds. So for me, I think if you're low on trades, hold Galvin. If you've got trades up your sleeve, go Galvin to Cody, and that's okay. I think you can live with that with the draw for Souths. Smithies to Tuolungi's feels, I'm assuming we're talking Kelma Tuolungi from Parramatta, just seems kind of sideways for me. Smithies is averaging, 49 on the season or some shit. Like, Kelma Tuolungi, yes, he's come into this 80-minute role and he's looked good in the last 3 weeks. I bought him last week. It kind of worked out well. But do I think Smithies to Tuolungi is necessary? Not when Smithies is playing the round 16 major bye. Tuolungi isn't. So, I mean, if you want to pull that trigger in a couple of weeks' time, sure, do that. But, yeah, for me, I think that's a bit of a waste of a trade. It seems a bit sideways for me. But, yeah, is either boost worthy? No. Is either necessary? No. But Galvin to Cody, if you've got the trades and you want to take a punt, I think that Cody will outscore Galvin on the stretch. Matrix popping in here, as he always does. If you were a wrestler, what would be your intro song? I actually, when I got this question, I had to think about this a fair bit. And there's just kind of one song, and for I don't even know whether the people that I podcast with know this, but I'm a massive Eminem fan. For anybody that follows me on X, maybe you'd know. I think it's hard to look past "Lose Yourself" by Eminem, and as a teenage white boy, I just loved everything about Eminem, every album. So for me, "Lose Yourself" by Eminem would be my intro song, I think, if I was a wrestler. But I can tell you right now that I'm about 73, 74 kilos, ringing wet. So you definitely won't see me in a pair of tights walking down to the squared circle, so they say. So yeah. Sloan Ranger ranks 1 to 4 out of Iro, DWZ, Plath, and Madden. That's the first part of the question. I'll answer that now. I'm assuming we're talking rank 1 to 4 as in maybe buys this week or plays, or just maybe overall season. So overall season from here, I think DWZ rank 1. I feel like we're at a position now with SJ back in this team and CNK back at fullback that we could see the best from Dallin on the right edge. Then I'd probably say Plath second, Iro third, Madden fourth. I think that's probably the way I'd rank them. The only reason for that, I think Iro's fine. He'll average 50 odd, but I think Plath maybe in the middle will get through a little bit more work and be a bit safer. There's 0 attacking stats coming from Kale Iro at the moment, unfortunately, but the base is good enough there. And Jock Madden, sure, Adam Reynolds is going to be back, I think, around 22. So he's only on a limited time this week. This season. He's only got a few rounds left in this team. And whilst that might be fine, the Broncos don't play those major buys at the back end here either. So yeah, much less value there, I think, with him. And even though Plath does play the 2 major buys coming up, I think that DWZ presents a little bit more value from here for rest of season, considering he only misses 19. And I think he's got a buy at the back end of the year. So that's my ranking. The second part of this question, would you play May or Lenu this week? Fuck, neither. I think it's got to be Terrell May just with the try scoring upside, doesn't it? Like, it's, Spencer Lenu, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get 30 odd minutes for 40 to 50 points max. I think with Terrell May, we just don't know how Robbo's using him every week. It's still a fucking guessing game, really, with how that's going to play out. So I think you just have to play May, knowing we've seen what he can do and how barnstorming he can be and how powerful he can be. With tackle bus, offloads, the guy can score. He can score a try whenever he kind of wants when he gets the minutes. So if Robbo decides to play him for 50 minutes and you sit him, you'll be spewing. I think he's just a guy that you have to plug and play every week and just take a punt. Mally's next question is thoughts on Fuller to Lehigh Hopewadi, bank the 250K and potentially take the 150 he makes. I mean, look, in theory, that's fantastic. Fuller, I think there was a concern around the HIA. I'm not quite sure. Obviously, Hammer's back this week, so we're not going to know. But he should be okay for round 16, so long as he gets through protocol. But I mein, we're holding a guy now for major buys at 16 and 19, and if Hammer doesn't back up 17, that's pretty much all we're using him for. It just depends what you're going to do with the money, I guess, Mally. Lehigh Hopewadi could be good for 3-4 weeks, but then you've got to plan to move him out. So you just got to make sure that 150K that he makes and the 250K that you've got in the bank goes towards potentially even filling that slot later and using that cash to upgrade Hopewadi to a keeper at fullback, or using your jewels to get in a really solid centre wing. So I like the trade, definitely, especially if you've got enough numbers for 16 and 19. Hopewadi will play 16, which is great. He probably won't play 19 because I think Turbo will be back by then. But I think the trade's decent. If you've got, let's just say you've got 18 or 19 plus trades, I reckon you can pull the trigger on it. HZ Parker is Lussick, Galvin, and Armstrong out for Watson, Wishart, and Garrick. A good boost this week. Okay. Let's break this one down a little bit. Lussick, get rid of him. Armstrong, get rid of him. They're both done. Galvin, let's go back to Lussick. He could even be an AE nightmare with what's going on with Trent Barrett there. So he came on and played 9 minutes last game and scored 7 or some shit. So, absolute VC loophole killer. And Armstrong's obviously just signed with Lee Leopards, I think, in the Super League. So, he's long gone. He won't be back in the team. Obviously, Fletcher Sharp has that fullback position until Kalen Ponga comes back into this team, I think, in round 20 or so. Galvin's an interesting one, but I'm all on board if you can facilitate a decent trade. It sounds like what's going on here is we're using the cash. We're using cash from, we're getting, we must have a fair bit in the bank here. Connor Watson's an interesting one for me. I'm not 100% sold on Connor Watson, just because with Brandon Smith out just this week, we don't know whether this is a lengthy suspension. We don't know whether he's been stood down. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. We only know that he failed to turn up to his mid-season review and has been stood down for that and breached by the Roosters. Is this the start of the end? I don't know. I'd imagine they'll stay pretty tight-lipped on this. But, look, Connor Watson's been fantastic. And if he holds that 9 role, great. He's a winner. And obviously he could play some 13 as well. And it looks like that's the way they've kind of used him with Radley on an edge now. So Watson's great. I just don't want to pay $700K for Connor Watson. If you can find someone else, that's a reliable scorer. Like, can you get a, depending on where you're plugging in this position, it looks like you're using it at hooker. Fuck, I'd love to just get a Ewan Aitken or something like that instead. He's cheaper than Watson if you can flick some jewels around. Like, I'd much prefer that. Or someone with a little bit more solid job security at that price. I just don't like paying that price. Wishart's fine. Good negative break even. We don't know when Munster's back, though. That's a bit of a coin toss too. Wishart's on borrowed time, I think. And Ruben Garrick's a lock. That's fine. I'm all for getting Garrick because he plays the next 2 major buys. But, the other 2 trades are questionable for me. Beardy77, DWZ or Mulatalo? Yeah, Ronnie Mulatalo and DWZ are both around the same price this week now, which I bought Ronnie at like $560 or something like that, and now he's down to $490. So like I spoke about the Sharks draw coming up, but I did rate Dallin as the best player in that earlier question there. Who do I rate more out of these 2? Fuck, this is actually a really tough question. I think it's got to be Ronnie. Purely because Nico Hynes and Trindle absolutely fed that left edge early on in the season. You look at Ronaldo Mulatalo's average. I think he averaged 80 when Trindle and Nico were combined in this team. We know that SJ's kind of been in and out of the team with injury. We know that CNK's very likely chance to get injured as well. I just feel like Dallin relies a lot more on an older half, and then I think Ronnie's going to benefit a little bit more with having Trindle and Nico back. So and Sharks obviously one of the better teams in the comp at the moment. Warriors questionable, hot and cold. So I think just based on the team and the halves and the creators for these 2 players, I think I'd back Ronnie Mulatalo. Jason Clark is asking: is Armstrong to Dallin, Drinky to CNK solid trades? Firstly, I'll answer the first part of this question. Yes, love them both. I think if you can pull the trigger on both of those, great. A lot of people have been asking, why are we selling Drinkwater? And I think it's purely come down to the fact that 1, he has 100+ break even, so maybe his price is topped out. 2, his availability is pretty ordinary. He's only going to play 3 of the next 5 games. He's going to miss the 2 major buys in round 16 and 19. So if you can get a guy like a Dallin who's going to play around 16, and obviously CNK. And with the Warriors draw looking half decent, I think I'd probably like to get both of these guys. But I'd maybe, if you could do Armstrong to Ronnie Mulatalo, if you don't have him already, Jason, I'd probably do that instead. But I like both trades. And I think Drinky with, just the Cowboys looking a little bit questionable as well. That's one of the things that I'm keeping in mind with Drinky. I'll be selling him this week as well. And the second part of this question is who to start out of Manu, Young, he does have Mulatalo, okay. Mulatalo, Iro, Marju, and DWZ. Okay. Manu and Young, definitely. Mulatalo and Iro, the Sharks play the Dolphins this week. I reckon there's every chance that they could feast on the left edge with Trindle and Nico. So I just kind of talked myself into that. So I reckon those four. And then if you can get a reserve, I mean, Marju, he looks pretty ordinary this year, to be honest. And DWZ, they play the Broncos, but they do play in Auckland. So I don't love the matchup against the Broncos. That's probably why I would prefer the Roosters and the Sharks matchups this week. With the Roosters playing the Eels, I think it is. We know what the Eels' edge defense is like. Dom Young's running at Micah Sevo this week, so you can lock him in for a double. And obviously Manu running at that edge as well. I think that's an absolute lock. And then with Ronnie, you've got two edges, really. You got your right edge for the Roosters and you got the left edge winger and centre for the Sharks that could get a fair bit of ball this week against the Dolphins running at Azarko's edge. But they've moved Herbie Farnworth over the other side. So if Avarillo's in this team and he's named at right centre, then that could be the edge to target. So I'd play those four. And if you needed to reserve one, I'd pick DWZ over Marju. Troz, back for another one. Hammer or Hopewadi this week for Drinky? A buy this week for Drinky, sorry. Don't want to pump all my available funds into Latrell or Teddy as need to fix issues elsewhere. Look, I mean, Teddy's definitely one of the best picks. Teddy and CNK for me at fullback are the two guys that I would look to upgrade from Drinky. But if you're looking at, we talked about Hopewadi, that's going to free up a ton of cash for you if you've got the trades. And if you've got the numbers for round 16 and 19, I don't mind Hammer. But surely there are some better options, and maybe you could even wait a week or two because Ryan Pappenhausen's due back around 16. So there is every realistic chance we have Ryan Pappenhausen for this major buy next week, which how fucking good would that be? NRL Physio's come out and said that that he doesn't expect any performance issues or concerns. When Pappy's back, he'll be back and he'll be ready to go. So for me, if you can wait a week, cop the Drinky against Raiders, which is fine. And then Drinky to Pappenhausen, you'll still make money from that in a week or two, which is huge. So, yeah, if you can make that happen, I'd prefer that over Hammer or Hopewadi unless you really needed the cash to do the Hopewadi trade. So that's probably the way I'd play it, mate. Shorty asking, what's my most memorable thing that's happened in Supercoach over the years, good or bad? Actually didn't think about this question at all, so this is straight off the top of my head. One thing, I guess, was round 27 last year, and I know it's quite recent, but there's a lot of lessons to take from that, and I think it's going to happen again this year, is to have at least two trades in your back pocket for round 27, because last year, I think I went from 3,500 in round 26 to 1,199 I finished last year. So I went up and basically cut my rank in a third. Because I had enough players and I didn't get copped by all the restings and stuff like that because I kind of planned for them. And I had trades to bail out. And I also captained Hamoldi Olakawatu, who scored 170 and a double in that final game in round 27 for Manly. So, yeah, that's probably in terms of my most memorable thing that happened in Supercoach last year. I haven't had enough time to think about this question properly, but that'd probably be it. Keep some trades in your back pocket. Jono, don't want to upgrade Smithies. Is there a sensible downgrade option at 2RF? Already has Finu. Can also go half or 5'8" via duels. And I'm not quite sure whether we're talking downgrades at half, 5'8", and 2RF. If we go and filter that right now, halfback, 5'8", 2RF, and then we go and look at maybe in terms of downgrades, I guess you're looking for a downgrade from Smithies. There's not much fucking cash there, is there? Let's go and have a look at maybe break evens. Dane Laurie, no. Tyron Wishart at 501k is not a downgrade anymore, unfortunately. So he's out of the question. Tamari Martin, way too expensive. Kyle Flanagan, he sucks. Kalmatu Alungi, he make like 20k out of that trade or something, I think, or maybe even it's a sideways swap now. So Don't love it, don't hate it. Otherwise, look, there's really not much else going on in terms of downgrades in any of those positions. Ben Trebojevic, you actually have to pay up from Smithies to get Ben Turbo now. Jack Cole, it looks like, when Cleary's back, he'll lose his spot, but he's got a couple of weeks left. Sifa Talakai, there's been a bit of chatter around Sifa Talakai and his relevance this week as a buy, and even last week. He was great, don't get me wrong, but Teague Wilton being so close and this AC joint injury is concerning me a little bit. We don't know whether it's going to be another week and he's back, or it could be a month. So if you jump on Sifa, it could work perfectly. Or it might just be an absolute shitter and Teague's back next week. Talakai comes back off the bench for his 25-minute role and scores you fucking 27 points a week and becomes a bit of an AE problem then too. So I'm staying away from Sifa Talakai. Naf White, not a fan. Already got Fainu. I mean, look, Justin Matamua probably just playing for the Tigers. It's not there for me. There's really not anybody else as a downgrade in any of those positions for me. So I honestly would I'd probably just hold Smithies for the round 16 buy and then reassess round 17 maybe, which is a boring answer, but that's probably the way that I'd play it if I'm honest. You don't need to play him even in the other rounds, hopefully. Got HZ Parker asking, currently have 15 trades left, want to bring in CNK for Drinky. Is it best to save trades for this week or maybe and maybe for the next couple of weeks as I'm set up pretty well for the buy rounds? Look, I mean, Drinky, like I said, Drinky is a bit of it's a luxury trade. It's a good trade, but it's a luxury trade. So if you've only got 15 trades left, like you're starting to run it pretty skint. For me, the way I'd probably approach it, and CNK's break even's 45 this week. So it's not like you have to jump on, otherwise he's out of reach next week. If you're happy at 730K to let him gain another 20 or 30K, even if he scores well this week, you can pick him up at 750, 760 next week, and it won't be against the Broncos. The Warriors have actually a pretty favourable matchup next week against the Titans in the major bye. CNK could actually be a captain option next week. So, if you can wait a week and just go Drinky, hopefully he doesn't lose too much cash if you think he's going to score points, and then you can reassess next week. And save a trade this week. I don't hate it. I don't necessarily think you have to trade if you set up well for the buys. And lastly, from Pitbull, are you interested in any of the cheapy fullbacks of Hopewadi and Sharp as Armstrong replacements? I've kind of mentioned my thoughts on Hopewadi and probably Sharp. You can throw him into this as well. Kalen Pong is due back in the next 4 or 5 rounds. So Sharp's time is limited. I don't know whether I want to spend a trade on Sharp and then have to spend another trade getting him out. I don't think he's going to make enough money in those 4 weeks for me to be able to have enough cash to go up to a keeper. So for me, I'm not a huge fan of unless, I mean, if it's an Armstrong replacement, that's fine. But Hopewadi and Sharp are both only fullbacks position-wise. So for me, I'm probably Armstrong is more of a centre wing upgrade, if anything, to a Dallin, to a Ronnie Mulatalo. Probably not touching Marju anymore for me, but someone around that kind of 490, 500 price, I reckon, as a fallen gun. You've got a couple that are ripe for the picking there, so I'd probably prefer that. And you're right, downgrades and cheapies are looking pretty grim. So trying to think outside the box is great, don't get me wrong, but trying to find a pod for the sake of finding a pod just isn't it for me. You've got to be really careful at this point of the year that we've got 15 or 14 rounds of data now. We can look at and we can go, all right, cool. We've seen enough from this person to know that their role's pretty stable. They're scoring, their base, the team's looking good, et cetera, et cetera. So just trying to find a random pod in a team that potentially hasn't been scoring that well is a little bit of a risk that I'm probably not taking at this time of the year. Pods are fine, but there's got to be a reason why you're doing it. And I feel like just the Armstrong to DWZ or Armstrong to Mulatalo this week's too obvious and could hurt you if you don't get on. So that's probably the way I'd approach that. Guys, that wraps up all of the questions. Some absolute bangers this week. Plenty of chat around. Do we go with cheapy fullbacks? Do we? What are we doing with Armstrong? And who are we upgrading to? And who are my picks for centre wing? That there is a lot going on this week. And, from now, setting yourself up for round 16 and even now round 19 and those mini buys in round 17 and 20 could be huge. And if you're an overall player like me and you're chasing rank, this is where we make that rank up. But just try not to get too pretty with it or too tricky with it. I think that the right picks are more often not the right picks for a reason. it's because they're scoring well and they're on a good team. So just keep it simple with that. But guys, if you did want to become an Insight Unlimited member, you can. It's only $20. Hop in my DMs or hop in the free Discord. It doesn't cost you a thing. Jump in the community, have a chat, see what we're all about in there. And, if you wanted to get access to our final trades, that's Whisperer, Matrix, and myself, our final trades, our teams, our moves, ask us any questions you want in the Unlimited chat in there in the Discord. We'll answer them throughout the week whenever you want. And then obviously you get access to answer these and I give you a more in-depth answer on the podcast. So $20 and that's all it'll cost you. And otherwise, if you don't want to do that, then you can just jump in the free Discord. But or you can follow us on Insight F Sports on X and Insight Fantasy Sports for all your other Supercoach sports as well. So yeah, plenty in the pipeline and the AFL boys are doing a great job over there too. So guys, that'll do us. That'll bring us to the end of the Insight Unlimited Q&A. Good luck this week. We've got another big round and a big moving round, I think, this week. So good luck. Hopefully plenty of green arrows. We'll see you on Sunday for the weekly wrap-up. Have a good one.